So I don't know if anybody knows what Albert Einstein's definition of insanity was, but it was basically doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. And, you know, this is kind of a key part of what we think about at CME Group, and what you should be thinking about is that you can't keep doing the same thing. You need to figure out different ways to innovate, different ways to collaborate, and by doing so, that's when you really come through with some breakthrough innovations. So really kind of what is innovation? And I think if you would Google this, you would find a lot of different definitions out there. This is one thing where I really think keeping things simple is a good approach. And one of my favorite definitions is just saying innovation is about significant positive change. And it's about taking risks, it's about, you know, learning from your failures, but it's about doing something differently and in a very big way. So this is the innovation and ambition matrix. This is something that the Harvard Business Review rolled out back in 2012. And think about this as really kind of a framework for companies to think about their innovation strategy. And so there's kind of, you know, three main areas to think about. One is just really the core, and core innovation is really about you know, utilizing some of your existing assets, your existing products, and reaching existing customers in new ways. The adjacent space is slightly different. This is saying, well, maybe I'm going to use some of the assets that I have, but I'm going to try to reach some new customers. Or maybe I'm going to reach some new customers with some, you know, existing assets and capabilities that I've already built. And then way out here on the last frontier is something that we call transformational. And you may also know this as something called disruptive innovation. And so one of the things through that they did through the researchers through this process is say, well, what's the ideal mix of innovation for companies? How should they be allocating resources across their organization into these three different buckets? And what they found is, on an optimal basis, about 70% of innovation efforts at companies are focused on the core. About 20% hit this adjacent space, and about 10% are more these transformational, really kind of big disruptive changes. And so if you look here, you know, across the horizontal axis, it's really wanting companies to think about how they're really going to win in this space. So it's, you know, talking more about the capabilities, the offering, the assets they have. And then the vertical axis is about really where they want to play and how they're going to approach new markets and new customers in kind of new and exciting ways. So what I wanted to do is take this matrix and try to apply it to some specific examples that we have in the futures industry. And obviously what comes to mind, and I'm sure many of you are interacting with your internships this summer, is just around products. And it's easy to think about those core innovations really coming from new product opportunities. And so I've listed a few here in terms of, you know, the E-mini S&P futures was certainly a big one that we introduced at the CME that has been a dramatic success. You know, new things like weekly options, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. This is kind of a new innovation where, you know, options have always been out there and available, but what we're finding is people want things more short-dated in nature, and that has been another thing that we've added to our core offering that has been added significant, you know, volume and revenue to CME Group. We also think about core as other things like tools. So if you were to go check out our website, you would see there's things like the pace of the roll tool, where we highlight to our customers, you know, how people roll their positions from one month to the next month. And so the use of those tools in and of themselves aren't a new product, but they're a new way for customers to think about our products, to get data and research in an easy manner. And so we would also think of that in a core sense. In adjacent, you know, I'm sure over the course of this series you've heard a lot, and you will today as well, about some of the regulatory changes. And regulatory changes often kind of push these innovations into the adjacent space. So in particular, things like OTC clearing. 10 years ago, this was not something really anyone was doing in a meaningful way, certainly with end users. Regulation through Dodd-Frank has pushed us to have that be much more an opportunity that many of the major clearing houses are offering around the globe today. And the other example here would be around deliverable swap futures. So again, this is kind of a combination of an exchange-traded product that delivers into an OTC swap. And so really trying to reach some new customers in new ways with a pretty uniquely designed product. Kind of the transformational, I think if you look across industry, financial services in general have kind of been laggards in terms of innovation and truly on the disruptive side. Some that came to mind as we kind of plotted this for ourselves was really around the use of SPAN, which is our margining methodology, and also just Globex in general. I mean, the pits existed here for hundreds and hundreds of years. So electronic trading was fairly disruptive at the time and continues to be something that we evolve. So one of the other kind of key innovation frameworks that out there is Larry Keeley wrote a book called The 10 Types of Innovation. I strongly encourage you, if you get a chance to see or read that sometime. And what this is really trying to do is expand our mind to think about innovation, that it's not just about products. It is about configuration of those products. It's about and how customers perceive the products that we innovate around. And so, I thought one good example that we all could think about is, how did Apple really think about the iPad and the rollout of the iPad? No doubt about it, the iPad delivers superior product performance. But if you stop and think about it, it also does a lot of different things. It's also part of a product system. And so you can be, purchasing other things through, Apple's store to make your iPad even more powerful. The brand is a critical thing that Apple has to offer here. The channel, the retail stores. I'm sure many of you have been into their retail stores and fully comprehend why those are some of the most, highly profitable per square footage stores of any retailer. And the Genius bars. I mean, they did a lot of things to embed lots of different types of innovation within their product offering. And so the research on this says that the more of these types that you apply to your particular offering, the more successful you're going to be. So when they looked at companies that were just average innovators, and then they looked at above average innovator companies, what they found is that the above average innovators were using about 7 different types of these, 10 types of innovation in their offerings, versus the laggards were using more like 1.8. So what it suggests to me is that as you go about and as you innovate in your careers, make sure you're thinking more than just about the product itself, that it is about the network, it is about the customer experience. And again, I think this book can walk you through some good examples across some other industries to think about this in a slightly different way. So one of the questions I often get as head of the research and product development group is, well, what do you look for when you want to launch a new product? And these are just some of the factors of the underlying market that we would look at. I mean, we want to make sure that there's a large underlying market, that there is price volatility, that there are both buyers and sellers in that market that are going to be, interested and have a need to hedge. These are kind of like at the core of what we're going to look at before we're going to try to invest any time in developing a new product. Some of the other considerations. So once we kind of identify, hey, this underlying market looks interesting, it looks like something we should pursue, there's a whole nother slew of things that as an organization we have to kind of evaluate. Certainly the intellectual property, licensing, how people are going to provide liquidity to those products. One example would be there is around our weather futures or even our housing futures. Wonderful products, are well designed, have large, underlying markets. But for them, they become really difficult when you try to identify people that can make markets and actually lay off the risk. So as we think about rolling out new products, we have to think about the entire ecosystem of where we're trying to place this new product to make sure we have something that can be successful. So I went back to some FIA data, and for the last 15 years, what we looked at is saying for all new futures and options products that were introduced across the industry, starting in January of 1999, how much did these products, really contribute to overall volume? So we pulled out just the major exchanges here. So we've got CME Group, we've got, ICE Life and Eurex as well. And as you can see, there's a significant amount of innovation that has taken place in the futures industry. And certainly there's more to come. I would say what we saw in looking at this data is a lot of the big spikes that you see in there were driven by, some key equity futures contracts that were introduced, also some major options contracts. ICE's WTI futures contract was launched during this time period, and all of those really helped kind of to contribute to this huge, groundswell of trading activity. And this is even, in light of the electronification of the markets that took place during this period of time. What this graph is looking at is a little bit different, and it's saying, okay, across all those products, what are the types of products that have been, most successful? And so, I guess I was a little surprised in looking at this is what the contribution that single stock futures has made to the new product success within the industry, and that's been a big one. But other than that, it has been pretty balanced. And so I think the point here is saying that all asset classes are really very relevant and very ripe for more innovation. And that's, certainly a good thing going forward. So one of the things that, I wanted to do is talk a little bit about some of the new things that we're doing at CME with regards to innovation. We launched a new lab this year to embrace some of these frameworks and these concepts that we talked about. And really what we're talking about is using people in a different way, creating the environment in a slightly different way, and using some methods. And so it's kind of exciting to be here at IIT talking about this because a lot of the core ideas in innovation began here at IIT around design thinking. So with that, I'd like to just run a very short video to kind of show you a little bit more about the lab that we've got at CME.
CME Group has a strong history and culture of innovation. We've been innovative in all parts of our organization, in all parts of our business, and in our industry. We recently opened the CME Group Innovation and Acceleration Lab to foster and drive additional innovation throughout our organization. A hallmark of all the labs that we looked at and saw was this open space and a conscious design meant to facilitate collaboration and, quite frankly, collision. What we hope through collision is that people or ideas that wouldn't normally interact or wouldn't normally touch each other collide. And what we find through some of these collisions is unexpected ideas or unexpected insights that we wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
And our hope is that the more people we have here, the more accidental collaboration that will occur, and ultimately we will be able to solve more problems, solve them more efficiently, and be in a position to delight our customers. But it's not just about the space, it's also about the process and the mindset of understanding the challenges of our customers and then ultimately delivering solutions that scale globally.
So that's a little bit about what we've going on. So we actually have a physical space that we are utilizing within CME Group. And part of what we're trying to do is bring in people with lots of different ideas across the organization. So sometimes we tackle product-related ideas. The next time we'll have our clearing group in trying to solve things around collateral. And what we've really found is that you really have to get people out of their everyday element and into a new physical space. We have some great facilitators that come in and run these sessions. And from that, we really hope to be driving that significant positive change that I talked about earlier. And so with that, I really encourage all of you to think about what it is that you can do to innovate. All of you have, every opportunity, I believe, in your roles and throughout your careers to have an impact. So I hope that you learned a little bit more about innovation, and thanks again for your time.